The musician Prince, one of the most inventive music makers of his era, has died at his home in Minneapolis. He was 57 and had been struggling with illness for a while. Well, with us now is our arts editor, Will Gompert. And Will, I mean, this is a terrible shock.
I should say. I mean, it's extraordinary. The whole this year is turning out to be an annus horribilis for artists. And to lose Prince, as you say, just 57, such a vivacious character, such a brilliant innovator, such a great creative spirit is truly shocking. It's people. I mean, I sent out a tweet and people immediately saying, you know, they can't really account for it. They can't make sense of it. He's so young. People didn't really know he'd been poorly, although his agent did say that a plane had to be curtailed. Plane flight had to be curtailed recently because he was unwell. But he created the most amazing music. He was an extraordinarily clever man, a great entertainer. But his great albums, 1999, Purple Rain, Sign of the Times, all beautifully sugar-coated, but all of them were telling stories of darkness, of the shadier side of the 80s. So, like I suppose all great artists, he was able to mix the light and the shade. But he was just so prolific as well that, you know, they say at Paisley Park there's a whole storage centre of music which has never been released by Prince. But if there's anything about Prince that made him stand out, he was the most extraordinary live performer. I would say, Rebecca, the best live performer I've ever seen. That he controlled the house. It didn't matter if it was a 20,000-seat arena or a private gig in a small pub, which is what he liked to do, just pop up surprising people. He just captured you, and you were with him all the way, with his energy, his wit, his ideas, his songs, his rhythms. Amazing.
That's no mean feat, given he was only 5'2".
Well, that was part of it, I think. I mean, that was part of his shtick, that his enormous character, in a way, because he was quite a shy man. He didn't do huge amounts of publicity. He actually was quite a private guy. That his big persona and his act, his stage act, which was, you know, epic and cinematic in scale, was part of his own personal stature.
He wrote, he composed, he produced most of his music, he played most of his instruments. I mean, this gives us a sense of the kind of musician he was.
Well, he was a total musician, and he was, to a certain extent, also a control freak. That he wanted every single detail. He had his own studio at Paisley Park. He mixed a lot of his own music. He made sure when certain works went out at certain times that each record was an act of curation. He then made movies about the records. You know, Purple Rain, great movie. Sign of Times, great movie. And his ability to innovate, to not get stuck in a rut. So many musicians, when they had the sort of success that Prince had in the 80s, would get stuck. But he just cracked on. He worked with a whole series of different people. You know, remember he worked with Sheena Easton back in the day. And he just had an intense curiosity for life, which he then communicated to the world through his music. You
mentioned about how he encapsulated the 80s in many ways, and when I think of his lyrics, I think of quite sexual lyrics, and religious ones as well.
Yes. I mean, he was saucy. Yeah. You know, I mean, he was sexy. I mean, he was designing music to be danced to be in clubs to make love to have fun with. You know, he was vivacious. You know, he mixed soul and disco and rock and glam, and put it all together in this massive package of beautiful music.
Let's pause just for a moment, Will, and listen to some of Prince's music now.
Ow! I'm going down to Alphabet Street. I'm gonna crown first girl that I meet. I'm gonna talk so sexy. She'll want me from my head to my feet.
Yeah, in some ways he's just done our job for us, hasn't he? Encapsulating all the things you've been talking about, Will. This is a shot now live from Minneapolis, outside Prince's recording studios, where the news has broken within the last hour that he died. He died at his home in Minnesota. His publicist has said he'd been suffering from ill health and had to cancel 2 recent concerts. We know that his private jet had been forced to make an emergency landing last Saturday because of his condition. That may be somebody who will be talking to us in a short while, perhaps. His staff had said he had a bad bout of flu. Prince sprang to international fame in the early 80s, and our arts editor, Will Gompertz, is here. And I suppose it's his contribution to music, Will. I mean, somebody said to me just a few moments ago, how does he compare, say, to a musician like David Bowie in terms of the contribution?
Well, he follows a direct lineage.
Yes.
And obviously David Bowie was a massive influence on Prince. But Prince is funkier, to be honest. I mean, we just heard a blast of his music there. And he was bringing that African-American historical sense of music from jazz, rhythm and blues, soul, funk. He packaged the whole lot up and he called it this, he had this new wave feel to it, this new romantic feel to it. So you don't forget that on one hand you had Duran Duran and Spandau Ballet, who were fine. And then you had Prince coming along, who was playing at a completely different level. And it's quite interesting. It was at a moment when David Bowie himself was having a creative dip. And Prince, in a way, took that role, I would say, as the world's greatest living rock star.
Stay with us, Will. I'm going to bring in now our correspondent Peter Bowes, who's in Los Angeles. Peter, this news just breaking within the last hour. What more can you tell us?
Well, we're still really waiting to find the details. We know that Prince passed away at his home. The authorities have not elaborated on the circumstances, but we do know, as you've been hearing from his publicist, that he had been ill recently. He'd been suffering from flu. His plane had to make an emergency landing. He was taken to hospital. He wasn't in hospital very long. He was released after a few hours and went home. But clearly, at least in very recent history, he had been in ill health. As to anything more serious than flu, we simply weren't aware of it. So there's a lot more we will hopefully find out about this. But that aside, the shock is palpable, and that's reflected here in Los Angeles, in Hollywood, and of course Prince was a major player not only in the music industry but in Hollywood as well. And fans are greeting this news almost with a sense of disbelief, that it is very difficult to comprehend this man, this supreme talent, passing away at the age of 57.
Reaction already to this news. I see the Australian actor Russell Crowe has written the greatest live act I ever saw. And you mentioned early reaction there in the States, Peter. Peter, can you still hear me?
Yes, I actually having difficulties hearing you now, but clearly there is going to be an outpouring of grief, and we will hear many more responses, and I think people sharing their memories of Prince from years gone by and the influence that he had on their careers. And yeah, Hollywood was certainly central to part of Prince's career. And I think one thing that people remember is that he was an extremely, some might say, belligerent character in terms of defending his own identity, and we went through that phase of denying his name, almost, the artist formerly known as Prince, and that was quite a long-running dispute with the studios, but a supreme talent, and he is going to be sorely missed.
How do you think he will be best remembered, Peter? I think we might have a few issues with talking to Peter Bowes. No doubt we'll be back to him when we can. Meanwhile, John Mackey is a former editor of Smash Hits and Q magazine, and he's on the line now, and hopefully you can hear me, John.
Yes,
first
I
of all,
can hear you fine.
Great. Thanks so much for joining us here on BBC News. First of all, this news is a terrible shock.
It's devastating. I mean, when he was in the hospital a couple of days ago in Atlanta, I think people thought that was just a blip. But then with this year, we've lost so many talented people, you know, from Maurice White, Earth, Wind and Fire, and David Bowie. But to lose Prince is, I think, the greatest live performer of his generation. It's awful.
You say the greatest live performer of his generation. Can you give a sense of what it was like to see him live on stage?
It was unpredictable. He would do 3-hour shows. He would turn up late. He would dance like James Brown, but he was wearing heels. He would play the guitar like Jimi Hendrix. He would marshal his band like Duke Ellington. He was just phenomenal. There was no live performer like him, and even, the great Stevie Wonder was not in Prince's class in terms of just marshalling an audience and just commanding respect from some amazing musicians that he worked with.
I'm thinking back to, he did that series of gigs, 20-odd nights, wasn't it, at the O2, but he also did far more intimate gigs in much smaller venues as well, didn't he? Did you see him in both places?
Yes, I mean, I saw him at the last gig I saw him at was at the Camden Roundhouse, which was about 5 in the afternoon, and he just played 2.5 hours, including a 20-minute version of Purple Rain that just had some of the audience in tears. And I saw him at Hop Farm and festival in Kent, and there were 16, 17-year-olds leaving the gig saying, "This has changed my life. This is amazing. I'm going to reevaluate my entire record collection." I mean, he just had that effect on people.
Not only, though, as a performer, I mean, he wrote his own music, didn't he? He produced most of it. He played most of the instruments. I mean, he was the all-round musician, wasn't he?
Yes, I mean, if you can listen to the first 4 tracks of his album Parade, he played the drums on them all in one take. And it's just the kind of records and music that he made. His musicianship is just on a different level from, I think, anyone else performing of his generation. I mean, Jack White of the White Stripes is the only person I can think of in current parlance who kind of compares, but even he doesn't have Prince's mastery of the guitar and drums and bass. And vocals, of course, as well. He's a great singer.
He had a wide vocal range, didn't he?
He had a tremendous vocal range, and you can hear that on something like Sign of the Times, where there's so many different styles of music, and you think it's just one man producing funk, producing cultural commentary on the title track, producing heavy rock, producing ballads like The Cross and Adore. It's just amazing, really, to think of his legacy, and it's a great legacy that he's left with more to come, because he wrote thousands upon thousands of songs, and many of them haven't seen the light of day up until now. So I think there's going to be more Prince songs to be discovered, and that will be the one small crumb of comfort from this very sad news.
Yes. He changed his identity, didn't he? And people listening may remember that he also changed his name. I remember the time when he was known as a symbol or the artist formerly known as Prince.
Yes, and that became a little bit of a tarred joke, didn't it, towards the end, that people would call themselves the artist formerly known as and Symbol. And, even then, the albums, some of the songs on the Symbol album do sound recognisably like him. But he was definitely... belligerent, had his own, plowed his own furrow, as all great artists do, and he fell out with most of his record companies. And he was famously controlling about content, so it's difficult to find really great Prince clips on YouTube. He wouldn't let his fans have the mobiles and film in the concerts, which I think is probably to be admired. But yes, he's definitely had his own way of doing things.
You mention his legacy, and I appreciate that, this news has only come to us within the last hour, but I wonder how he will be judged in the history of rock music.
I think in the next 24 hours, I think what will happen is that the news shows will probably show Purple Rain, the song, and that's probably what radio stations will play. But over time, people will just see the breadth of his work, not just the 80s materials, but the 90s and the noughties, and just listen to a wide range of innovative, phenomenally catchy songs.
OK, John Mackey, former editor of Smash Hits and Q Magazine, we're very grateful for your time. That news just into us that the American singer Prince has died at his home in Minnesota.